Okay, thanks a lot. Good morning, everyone. My name is Zondani. I'm from the Kouga Windfarm Community Development Trust. I always make it a point to say Kouga because sometimes we get mixed up with Kouga. It can get a bit tricky. So I'm from the Kouga Windfarm Community Development Trust, and just a brief background of how the trust came into being. We report to our project company, which is the Kouga Windfarm, which owns turbines on the land of Oyster Bay, on a farm there, right? About 13, if not 16 turbines that are on that particular farm. The revenue that flows from the operations of that wind farm are then distributed towards our trust for community development projects that we run within our community beneficiaries. Now, there are 5 of these beneficiary communities, 4 of them, my apologies, that I'm going to run through as we continue. And I think, as also a member of the business chamber, Nelson Mandela Business Chamber, I'll just also touch on what our role is in that sector. Jonas mentioned that there are issues around funding as it relates to, NPO sector, CBOs, home-based cares, etc., etc. So one of the opportunities that exist within the Coastal 6, or at least what is known as the Coastal 6 within the wind farms, is that there are ample opportunities for funding and support within the community development trusts that exist within the Coastal 6 wind farms in our area. We've got them in abundance, and I think at times those opportunities are not maximized. This is a list of our board members, basically, and who we are, right? We've got our chair, who is Mutlalipule, Natane Taula, Marisa Besta, Masichaba, as well as Matotsi. Shireen Sopkota is one of our trustees who's on the board as well, and Tabisa Ngama, who you see on the picture, is the community trustee. Our general manager is the tall guy in the next picture, you'll see him, and then there's our very small team, but we try to get as much done as we can, right? So this is a picture of our board of trustees. I'm not sure if you can see it, I'm battling. Okay, so in the middle there, we've got the founder of Gift of the Givers. This was last year during our AGM. From the left is our chair. Masichaba is the one next to her. Marisa Besta is that other one, is the lady in the green, and then I report to Mr. Prince Matonzi. And there's Matonzi, who is our legal eagle, next to the founder of Gift of the Givers, and then it is Shireen as well as our community representative in terms of the trustees. So this is the Brains Trust. These are the people who guide us in terms of our strategy as a trust. I'm going to speak quickly about the trust theory of change strategy that we embarked on, and exactly what it means as it relates to our delivery on our deliverables, right? Our intent is quite clear as it relates to what we're trying to achieve within our communities, which is the quality of education, improving quality of life, and the reduction of poverty within our communities. So one thing to note, and I was mentioning this with one of the colleagues in the table here, is that the trick or the catch when it comes to trusts, particularly wind farm trusts, is that they operate within a 50-kilometer radius of the actual wind turbines. What that means is that there are limitations as it relates to the yield upon which the benefit goes to, but the partners who we can bring on board, there's no limitation as relates to that. And I'll speak to that and why that is as I continue. We have a new strategy that we are taking on board as it relates to our funding model, right, which is the 60-20-10 funding strategy model. The long-term interventions that we go on are part of our 7 pillars, which is basically the education and skills development, enterprise development, and healthcare. So those are our top 3 priorities that we try to look into. And 70% of our budget allocation goes to that. 20% goes to short-term interventions, which can last over 3 to 4 years, depending on what the fund, or at least the applicant or the NPO who approaches us is, or who wants to run a project with us, right? And that can cover infrastructure development, arts and culture, sports development as well. So 20% of our spend on an annual basis goes to that. And then the other 10% goes to immediate projects or interventions such as disaster management, floods, fire, which we experience a lot in our area. So that's just the funding matrix or strategy or framework that we work with, which becomes important for partners, like we say. We refer to people who we work with as partners and not service providers, Jonas, because it becomes problematic when we have a very business-like interaction with partners who can actually add value far more than what the numbers can actually dictate. So I also mentioned this very same thing with the colleagues at the table, that some of the discussions we may have here may end up being a meet and greet, where we invite you for a meeting to say, okay, let's see what synergies exist, you know. It may be non-committal, but where can we collaborate? We're not strict on that. We engage quite openly, and we're quite open and transparent in the work that we do. I was a bit concerned that this might not be as visible as I'd like it to be, but I've discussed the funding matrix with you colleagues. At the bottom there is our call for proposal process, right? From time to time we go on a call for proposal. One of our latest ones is the ones that close on the 28th, which is the humanitarian and welfare support call for proposal. We're basically looking for NPOs, CBOs, partners who can assist us with our communities as it relates to humanitarian interventions, helping the elderly understanding the space as it relates to youth or people generally living with disability in our space. Those type of interventions, we were looking for partners in that sense. Yesterday I had a look. We only are sitting on 15 applications that have come in for that. Some of the work of the trust has been quite silent. Unfortunately, that's the sense I had when I came in. We don't make enough noise about the work that we do, which is quite important and quite good as it relates to some of the outcomes that I've seen. So this is another plea to everyone who's in the room today to go onto our website, jump onto our platforms, social media. We're quite active there, and have a look at what we do and see what type of synergies we can form on the back of that, right? So we go on the calls for proposals. Occasionally, we then have an application form that we request that partners fill in, and then we sift and we've tried to find the best fit for interventions within our communities. The 50-kilometer radius beneficiary yield or beneficiary space that we speak about is not directed towards service providers and partners, like I said. I was sharing with colleagues at the table here when we were introducing one another that we've had partners from as far as Limpopo, Joburg, Northwest that we've worked with, who would say to us, Sia, there's a problem within your communities. We've scanned and scoped that place. Would like to intervene with the expertise and experience that we have and assist you with those particular issues. I'm going to go through some of our key pillars so that we can really find each other on that. Jonas mentioned when he sent us this invite that we need to look at professionalizing the CBO's NPO space, right? And there are concerns there, Jonas. There are real concerns, such that one of the interventions that we went out on is to really bring into one room 16 of our NPOs who had been interacting with us for the past 5 years or so, and see how we can perhaps help them through one of our service providers who was able to take them through quite a stringent process or program that looked at their financials, that looked at their leadership, that looked at their governance, and primarily that looked at bankable proposals and proposal writing skills that they can actually benefit from the program. So we had 16 who graduated from that. Very successful program. We're going to year 2 of it this year. So this was a 4-month program that we ran as a pilot. I must admit, the proposals that we then got from our CBOs within our communities were better quality and far more bankable as a result of this. So it's just a response to the question you asked about professionalizing the space of NPOs. At times, we don't know what we don't know. We were part of the first workshop of this particular session or this program, and we found out that quite a number of issues are what we call blind spot problems, right? And that the actual service provider added value in a sense of being able to provide more of a business support and coaching than just workshopping them throughout. So they'd go to the actual initiatives, sit down with them, look at their operations and how it's operating, right? I'm almost done. I know that look. So this is just a snapshot at what we look for when it comes to applications that come in. It's the research analysis objective methodology. I'll share this particular presentation with colleagues. This is the most recent call that we went out for, which was the welfare humanitarian support. And I think one of the more important pieces of information I wanted to share today was our 3-year performance as it relates to our strategic pillars and how we invested. So land and infrastructure development was our biggest investment over the past 3 years, because we had run a project where we funded and actually we retrofitted and fixed 101 RDP houses in Oyster Bay, which is the actual beneficiary community that we are from, right? Underspending is as it relates to enterprise development, which we are trying to get that up again. We've got welfare and humanitarian support, which I've spoken about as well. And the other big cost item for us has been education and skills development, which is a big thrust as it relates to our priorities. This is just a quick snapshot of the retrofit that we did for our RDP houses. We fixed 101 of them in Oyster Bay. Very good project. We've gone over and above this to try and fix their sewer problem. There's a video, it's 14 minutes long, so it would have taken up all my time. That speaks to just the intervention that we had in this community. The sewer was running over, it was quite a bad situation. It's a community that has been neglected over time, and there are efforts to try and assist, again, through partnerships. This was a partnership with the local municipality and SMMEs from the area. All labor as well as contractors were coming from the area. So we took some time to actually train the contractors to say, what does it mean to be a primary contractor? And then we got the labor in, assisted everyone. I want to just really encourage all in the room today to assist us in submitting their own applications to that particular info at kwftrust.co.za. We do funding in 2 streams, Jonas. We've got the call for proposals, and then we've got the last one, which is unsolicited bids. And that's open throughout the year. So you can always submit to us. We'll apply our minds. We'll respond to you. We'll try to see where it fits within our 7 pillars of priority, and then have a conversation. Thanks a lot.
Mutsia, thank you for sitting down with us, man. I really enjoyed your keynote. How did you find coming to this particular? Is it your first time at Masifunda? Or?
Actually, I thought I'd mention that up there. It's not my first time, it's my third time. And you know, every time I get here, there's a sense, there's a vibe, there's an energy that I really enjoy. So yeah, it's great being here.
No, nice. And what do you think about the facilities?
Unbelievable. Every time I get here, I see a new part of it. It's just sort of building on, really good work. And it's just a fresh space. Coming in, you'd never think you'd see such a facility, right? Yeah. But it's a beautiful feature within the community. And it's been a beautiful feature for quite some time.
Yeah, no, it's very nice. Yeah. It's very nice. I've got a couple of questions that I'd like you to share your insights on. Really enjoyed your presentation on the work that the Kouga Windfarm Community Development Trust is doing and your perspective on how non-profits can add value to the work that you guys are doing. I want to ask you this. Why is a strong and well-functioning non-profit sector essential for South Africa's development?
So with the experience that I've had in the space, what I've found is that non-profits complement the work of government. They act as agents, implementing agents. They're able to really amplify some of the work, particularly in education, for instance, to make an example.
Yeah.
From the partners that we've worked with, we've really seen some good work. We've seen some passionate practitioners who've gone over and beyond the call of duty to assist even some of our own departmental employees and people who are in the system to capacitate them further, to provide additional support. And I think Luphumlo also to be innovative in how we deliver, right? Yeah. So, there's one way of delivering curriculum, for instance, but it's one thing. But to deliver it in such a way that it's tangible and it's actually relative to learners within the school environment is something else. And I think NPOs are best positioned to do that, to add that sort of value to what already exists, to flag what the problems are, and to even keep everyone, including ourselves, accountable to the work that we all do.
What I loved about your keynote was also how you spoke about professionalizing the non-profit sector and the program that the trust ran.
Absolutely.
Can you share some insights, maybe one or two things from that program? You guys took on board 16 non-profits and you saw real impact.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's always difficult to go into depth when you're up there because you're pressed for time. 16 non-profits, all within the community priority areas that we work with. They came on board very, with gray areas, and not knowing what they don't know. And even in the first workshop, like I said, what I'd mentioned to the group is that there are blind spots that we don't even know about as they sit there. Within the third session, there was quite a lot of improvement, particularly from the proposal writing perspective. Writing bankable proposals and submitting them not only to ourselves but other potential donors and funders. Because ultimately when an NPO submits and they're not getting any good feedback or anything as it relates to work that they can do, there's an element of discouragement, there's an element of real regression. That NPO could actually close. So the impact that we saw there was, like I said, it was actually business-like. There were actual coaching and mentorship sessions that were held on site, not just within the workshop or workshop environment. They walked them through the type of NPOs that they can be by diversifying the way that they work, right? And optimizing operations and being far more efficient, and then also being able to actually account to the donor in a way that will actually encourage future partnerships in the future. So it was really an eye-opener even for us, because we were even taken through as well as coaches and mentors ourselves as the actual donor to say, look, there's an opportunity for you to understand your role better. So it was a very comprehensive program that yielded good results.
That's lovely, and I think something like that should definitely continue. So big ups to you guys on that.
Definitely.
What key focus areas should non-profits prioritize to drive real and lasting change?
Sure. A keen understanding of their community. You'll find that sometimes non-profits will exist in one space and then work in another. It can be problematic. So what we found is that non-profits that are actually rooted within the community work best. Non-profits that are capacitated work best, right? Non-profits that actually provide an approach that is practical for their communities works much better. I'll make a quick example. We've got a program currently that we are running of trying to assist the outcomes or improve the outcomes of maths and science within our communities.
Yeah.
A member from the non-profit came in, could not speak the language of the day. We had to get someone in from the same company to provide us with that, to break through that bottleneck and really touch base with that community, and we were well received.
Nice.
Over and above that, that actual product of actually assisting the outcomes of those maths and science learners, it took off, but a certain approach needed to be adopted, one that is far more inclusive and that is sensitive to the communities that we are actually serving. So it's a multitude of approaches, Luphumlo, to be quite honest with you, but we found that grassroots approach works best. CBOs that actually come from those communities are able to adapt their services if they're capacitated best when they're given the opportunity.
I like that grassroots approach.
Absolutely.
So organizations that are from those communities should make the.
Yeah, we found incremental success with them.
I wonder why though.
Yeah, I think it's relativity.
Okay.
You know? So they understand the community better, the dynamics much better. At times, even if we are struggling, I mean, the socio-political dynamics that exist within communities, only they know them best. And they're able to survive them. Not only know them, but they know how to survive those particular circumstances. But I'll make an example about our ECD centers that are thriving currently because of an intervention that we had. The whole idea is to support existing ECDs, early childhood development centers, and not start new ones. The only new element would be the capacity building. So we came in at the back end, we provided nutritional support, we provided capacity building for those facilitators who are actually CEOs of those those ECDs, for them to run those ECDs better, to submit bankable proposals, and to actually be able to account for the donations provided to them, so that the sustainability of those enterprises continues.
You know, a nice word that you mentioned is how those local nonprofits understand the, what did you say? Socio-political dynamics.
Absolutely.
That's a very nice word.
Yeah.
If we had time, I would double click on that because it's very nice. Here's another one. What practical advice do you have for nonprofits to increase their impact and effectiveness? How do nonprofits increase their impact and effectiveness?
Adequate scoping, again,
Nice.
a deep understanding of the community that they are working within. Not to sugarcoat things, be as honest as possible. When it comes to consultation, be as comprehensive as possible. That's what we found.
What do you mean, consultation with who?
Yeah, consultation with key stakeholders within those communities. For some of them, you find that MPOs, like I said, will be coming from Gqeberha working in Humansdorp, right? And all they do is intervene on the core business without actually engaging in meaningful consultation. Yes. Right.
In fact, I loved what you said. You said that you look at service providers as partners,
absolutely.
Not really as that
absolutely,
really, you know.
Absolutely.
So,
during the course of a program, there are many dynamics. There are many changes that come into play that may even change the way that we are working. We need a partner who will be able to add value and say, look, there's a solution for this problem that's emerging here. And from a partner point of view, this is how we're looking at it. Because if we look at it in black and white, we may get caught up in the numbers, like I said. That we're not reaching these particular targets, etc., etc. Yes, that may be the case, but what are the reasons that are, or what are the bottlenecks that are actually now emerging? Because remember, community development is a moving target. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. And so when we have partners on board that have an appreciation of that, they can either anticipate that, or they can be very proactive in how they respond to those dynamics as and when they occur.
Very nice. Flexibility?
Absolutely. Flexibility. In their approach to community development within the pillars that we have, it's key.
Because I'm thinking of what you just said about the moving target, that things change on the ground. You know? It would be interesting to know how you guys accommodate that as an organization. You know, you've undertaken to do a particular intervention. 3 months in, things change. Whether from a funding point of view, there's flexibility to see, okay, how do we navigate the change?
We've had quite a number of those. Even when I started last year, I found that, okay, there may be a few changes that need to be implemented, and we engage on that. Not only just as an engagement, but formally. We look at the actual agreements that we have, and we say, what do these changes mean to the course of action that we've agreed on, right? And what are the implications, short term, medium term, long term? So it becomes a co-creation right through. It doesn't just at the end and then we ask for results at the beginning, offer results at the end. We co-create as we move along.
Very nice. No, that's very nice and important. Here's the last one. How can nonprofits secure sustainable funding and diversify their income streams in a challenging financial landscape? I like the part about diversifying income streams, because what I've found is majority of nonprofits that I've worked with will always maybe have those 1 or 2 or 3 big funders, you know, and when anything happens, the organization collapses, you know. So what's your insight on that?
I'll make a case in point. I mean, that's the best way to really illustrate anything. We've got an organization dealing with, holistically, basically dealing with community development issues, particularly related to young men within the society. And so they provide mentorship, they provide guidance, they provide pastoral services to them.
Pastoral?
Yeah.
As in pastoral?
Yes.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, they do. And so, but the issue again, right, funding, securing sustainable funding and diversifying their revenue streams. Interestingly enough, they came up with an innovative way to do that. They started a textile manufacturing leg.
Social enterprise.
Absolutely, social enterprise of their NPO. Nice. We encouraged this. We engaged with the proposal itself. We applied our minds. We gave them concrete recommendations that we are currently actually actioning now. And it's just the way they chose to do it. I mean, they were producing school uniform to the underprivileged.
Very nice.
Man, I mean, it just really spoke to being innovative, but at the same time, not being removed from your community. Yeah. Right? The innovation was actually speaking towards providing solutions through a social enterprise, like you said, right? Which is
very
basically
nice.
providing solutions for problems that exist within your community. That's very nice. But being able to draw a revenue from that. And
that's very nice.
It's taking off. The concept is solid. It's at its nascent state. It's still starting, but there's great promise in it.
No, that's very nice. Yeah, that's very nice. I've got one last one. Just wait. Let me just grab this. Follow this here.
No problem.
Thank you very much, Butsia, for your inputs and all the best to the work that you guys are doing. Any last words to any nonprofit that might be watching on how they can scale and what they can do differently?
It's an open-ended question, but number one, network. Nice. Network as much as you can. Do not isolate yourselves. Find like-minded individuals and organizations. Within the group of 16 that we had, an ecosystem started sprouting. They work with each other, they learn from one another. And so we found that works. So I think that would be one takeaway from me for NPOs right now, wherever they
collaborate, work together.
Understanding the constrained environment now financially that we're facing, right, with all the changes happening globally, it's important to look within your immediate environment and say, look, how can we collaborate? How can we network? How can we leverage lessons learned from others who've been there before? And also just take on agency. Learn more about your sector. Become an expert in your sector. Delve deep into your core business, because now is the time that needs to be done. And not focus just on anything, on everything, but delve deep into the core business and try and learn as much as possible.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.